This morning, we are invited to struggle alongside Thomas. We're invited to say the seemingly heretical thing we feel in our deepest, most secret thoughts out loud. Unless I see, I won't believe. When I was in candidacy to become a pastor in this wonderful church, I had to take some psychiatric evaluations. Don't worry, they do it to everyone. And I had to take the MMPI, which is a 600-question psych test. And one of the questions was, do you ever have thoughts so bad that you can't say them out loud? And I thought, well, I'm not going to put yes for that. And in the test, there's actually a gauge to see if you have been lying and trying to make yourself look better. There's also questions on there like, do you have diarrhea more than once a month? Can't make this up, you know? So when I went to talk to the psychologist who was basically like grading the test, and he comes up with a whole report and gives you it, he said, it seems like you were trying to make yourself look better than you are. And I was like, who doesn't, right? And he said, this is very normal for pastors. And I was like, all right. But the reality is we all have thoughts that are too bad to say out loud, which is why we have filters. Well, some people do. What I love about this encounter is how real it is, how raw it is that Jesus comes to Thomas with a scarred body, open wounds, real pain, trauma, and real presence. Thomas gets a bad reputation. He earns this historical nickname as Doubting Thomas. But isn't that us? The disciples doubt too. Jesus stands among them, and it's not until after he lets them feel his hands and his side that they proclaim that he's back. Unless I see for myself. I'm skeptical too. Anybody never had a skeptical moment about this whole Jesus situation? Dies, comes back to life. I mean, it's all pretty surreal. Every now and then I look around and I think, this whole thing could be made up. I'm sure that you've all also had moments like that throughout your life where you look around and say, this, really? Where the doubt seeps in, where the unbelief comes to the surface. We're invited to feel weary too. Our faith does not require us to always have 100% certainty that this whole thing went down exactly how the Bible tells us, and we're not required to have 100% faith and 0% doubt at all times. Jesus reveals his traumatized body and all the traumatic history that goes with it to Thomas. Maybe Jesus even winces or flinches when Thomas places his fingers in the holes in his hands. Jesus offers Thomas so much. Real engagement, pain, and real presence. Without needing to say it, Jesus says to Thomas, I am with you where it hurts, where it's hard. I am with you when it gets lonely. Being a Christian doesn't mean we act like it doesn't hurt. Life hurts. Life is hard. Some pain lingers forever. Like the post-resurrection pain of Jesus, some wounds are for keeps. Some pain, loss, and trauma leaves traces that no amount of faith or piety can take away. Some wounds remain after the resurrection. Jesus doesn't come back completely reformed. The nail holes are still in his hands. He still has a wound on his side. It's okay to celebrate Jesus rising from the dead and to still feel catastrophic losses at the same time. This year, in the midst of grief I've been feeling, I am so grateful for Thomas. He's skeptical. He's brave to doubt. And slowly and methodically, he receives the news of Jesus' resurrection. He doesn't instantly believe. He has to try to make sense of this because really it doesn't make sense, because as far as they know, the dead stay dead. Now suddenly Jesus comes back to life. And we can say, well, Lazarus came back to life, and that's true. But remember, he's going to die again. Jesus doesn't die again. He leaves the earth in clouds and glory, unlike the way he came in. Thomas doesn't settle for someone else's experience of the resurrection. He wants to see the wounds and the risen Christ. When the daring, doubtful, yearning Thomas meets the wounds of the risen Christ, new life erupts. Resurrection happens all over again. Our doubt and our wonder and our questions are holy and good. They're not the antithesis of faith, but rather a part of our journey. One time, I said to my therapist, who expects me to be a certain way because I'm a pastor, I said, what if I don't believe anything right now? She was speechless. She should have known. She knows me. She's often surprised to remember that I'm a pastor, because I swear a little bit. We don't have to lock our doubts and unbelief away. We don't have to push them down and hide them from each other. We don't have to come here and pretend like we are holier than everyone else, because that's not the reality. Within ourselves, we all have these deep, dark places that we don't like to go. And when you don't believe, you still come back to this place, and the community of Christ here will believe for you. Certainly, after a death, there are times that you start to wonder, why does this happen? Or when things are just seemingly exploding all over the world, or when earthquakes are ravaging and floods are ravaging, we have to wonder, where is God in all of this? And in the times when you can't believe, or you don't believe, or you're flooded with unbelief, we'll believe for you. The ones of us whose faith meter is up a little higher. And we'll all equal each other out. Because the goal isn't to be doubtless. It's to ask good questions. It's to keep growing, keep learning, and keep walking in faith with each other. Amen.